So back about 2000, 2001, Wayne Smith was head coach of the All Blacks. Tony Gilbert was the forward coach. And they asked me to come in and run the odd scrum session because in those days, no team had scrum coaches as such. So it's quite daunting, and you're walking in and you're meeting the Tane Randalls and the Anton Olivers of this world, you know, who are your heroes. And I think coaches are no different to players, that when you go to the next level, a higher level, you have self-doubt. And I think just by acknowledging that you do have self-doubt, I think that helps a lot. So anyway, I went in there and I ran some sessions, and I also took along my biomechanist mate with me, and he'd help me, and we'd analyse the hell out of things. And
can you remember your first one, your very first? Can you remember what sort of concept you were going in there with, and hopefully the boys liked this?
Well, I know when I turned up, the main thing was what attire I was wearing, so it didn't have any conflict with the sponsor.
Yeah,
that seemed to be more important than what I was coaching. But I took over full time in 2004, because 2003 I went with Wales, Steve Hansen, to the World Cup as their scrum coach. And then from 2004 to 2011, I was the All Blacks scrum coach. And then from 2012, I took over the breakdown, the line-out, the scrum, and then Fozzie and I ran the kickoffs.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's been marvellous to I've had a real passion actually about my line out and breakdown. I really enjoyed coaching the All Blacks in that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to come back and touch on that. I'm interested to hear again about those the sports that you learned from, and some of the stuff you were able to inject straight away.
Yep. Well, say at the Melbourne Storm, the league boys, they had a great defence coach who was their strength and conditioning coach, who is into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So he had a heck of a lot of drills and activities he could show me about understanding your body, you know, like really a bit of fun, but really tough drills, one-on-one. And so I picked up a lot of him. You know, sumo-wrestling, I picked up about the importance of how you get power from the ground through their feet and generate through an opponent. So that helped me for, well, scrummaging, mauling, tackling, cleanout.
Yeah.
We have 2 contact points, shoulders and feet. And how far apart they should be is important. So I understand all the biomechanics of it. And then you coach it for your sweet spot. For all those activities, they're all the same. So for your clean out, your tackle, your maul and your scrum, you know, you just think of your 2 contact points. When you hit with your shoulders and your power comes from your feet, through your legs, through your body, into your opponent. And that's how we can generate the power. So I learned a lot off the sumo boys about how they hold the ground with their toes and how they get power from the ground. Quite fascinating, all that sort of stuff, you know.
And the ballet,
you don't see it when you're watching.
I can imagine. And the experience with the ballet as well. What did you pick up from that?
Okay, ballet. Okay, two main things there. Ballet and American football are quite high in the injury called turf toe. So that's the one where you're just under the big toe, like the sesamoid there. And we get it in New Zealand. Yeah, we get it in New Zealand. Like, you don't have to be a front rower, like Kieran Reid had it just coming off the defensive line and he felt it go. Anthony Borick had 2 operations on it, the lock. But generally it's the front row, boys, through pressure through the big toe. So ballet get it. So I was keen to find out how to prevent it. So when I went in there, that was my main question. And the artistic director, we would call coach, but they call him artistic director. He was Italian but spoke excellent English. He said that they hardly ever get turf toe now, so long as you make sure that when you jump and land, that it's all off the second toe, not your big toe. Now, when you had a knee injury and you got to the physio and they got you to do one-legged knee bends, they always told you to track over your second toe. That's your tracking line. So that made sense once he said that. I thought, Christ, when we get an injury, the physio always gets us to do that.
Yeah.
So then I can go back and tell my boys, and then when I'm coaching first 15s or youngsters, I can make sure that they spread their weight across their toes and just have a mindset of trying to get a bit more power through the second toe, not just the big one.
Yeah.
So if we might have prevented one injury a year, who knows?
Yeah. What a great point. Perfect example. How did you find the Melbourne Storm, and what did you pick up not only from what you learned with their physical stuff, but just the environment?
Well, it's great, you see, because Craig Bellamy, he's been in twice. Yeah, it's interesting, of course, you know, when you observe different cultures, different philosophies. You know, we are probably in the All Blacks, we give it the players, you know, they do a lot of the stand-up reviews and talks and presentations, whereas in the league, boys don't tend to do that so much. You know, so not saying who's right and wrong, I'm just saying that is a difference.
Yeah.
No, they were very good, great, very good. You know, I enjoyed my time over there.
With the wrestling side of things, because you see a lot of rugby teams doing it now and tapping into wrestling, and a lot of teams do it, I suppose, in the preseason and don't go back to it. What sort of impact have you had it have within the All Blacks environment? How often? Why is it so valuable?
I think wrestling's if you're only allowed to do one of those other sports, wrestling would be the one. Just don't teach my players how to be a wrestler. Just teach them about body awareness. So an example, your old mate, Carl Heyman, when Zag got injured many, many years ago, I brought him up home here to my house in Christchurch, and I arranged to take him out to Rodney Jarman as a local wrestling coach. He was the coach of the New Zealand wrestling team. So I took Zag out there. I think Whopper was with him too, Jamie. And an hour 50 of getting smashed out there. Ooh. And there was a young kid who was 16 who bet the shit out of them, and that was a guy called Joe Moody.
Yeah, right.
16. And just they didn't teach him. They decided it was just all skills and body activity and wrestling, like just you and I having a ruddy wrestle. But it was 5-minute wrestles, 30-second rest, and repeat it 3 times. That sort of thing. And they had the proper wrestling mat, so you couldn't get injured really. But I found all that stuff really, really interesting. And Rodney and I have been mates right throughout, actually, Rodney, and I'm always asking him for ideas even today.
So when the boys, and I don't know if many of them would, but if they say, Mike, why are we doing this? What's your answer?
Oh, yeah, I'm all for that because it's safe to make a mistake when I'm asking you to do something for the first time. It's safe, you know what I mean? Now, and the other thing is that the best coach, when we're training, I used to say it every week, who is the best coach here? And the boys would say, the guy we're doing an activity with. Correct. So say, for instance, you're tackling me on a hip pad, right? I'm holding a hip pad, you're tackling me, 1v1. You might do 10 in a row. Now, how do you know that you're doing it right? The coach can only see one couple at a time. So what I always encouraged was we need 32 coaches out here. So when you come in and do a punch wrap and I'm holding a hip pad, you would expect me to say, great punch wrap, good front leg drive, hit and stopped, hit and angled up. So you then go back and repeat and you correct. So instead of doing 10 reps, where probably 8 of them could be shit for all you know, we might have one and we self-correct and the other 9 are good.
Yeah.
So that's a safe learning environment that I'll help you because you're going to help me.
Yeah, I really rate that. And continuing on with the coaching and probably the wrestling theme, when it comes to scrummaging, what are some of the things the boys take out of those hard wrestling sessions, getting their asses dealt to into a scrum?
Well, it's knowing where your body is. So we have to educate them on how to use their body. There's 2 most important things with scrummaging. All you're trying to do is get 8 people to work in the same direction at the same time. And you're trying to get 8 people to have the ability to stay strong with movement. So it's that movement part that a lot of coaches don't know how to coach it. They're okay on a scrum machine. It's all straight. But a lot of stuff we do, there's movement. there's adjusting. And so I do a lot of drills with movement. I do a lot of drills with your eyes shut. So you have to feel everything around you. And that gets you to react a lot quicker. So yeah, feel is quicker than eyes.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that a couple of times in some of the videos. I want to go into some of your scrum coaching. I've watched some of your stuff, and I've actually seen you firsthand. You did a session down in Otago that I watched. I played first five my whole career, and so I just watched you coach because I was interested to see how you do your thing. And I loved how quickly you engaged all the coaches that were there to watch the players and just broke down that wall within a minute and just let's get on with it. But I want you to touch on kind of your three areas that I've heard you mention, the balance, speed and power, and maybe just explain why they're important to you when it comes to coaching.
Well, balance we need right across the board, not just for scrummaging. So I went and spent a day with Tom Walsh, the world champion shot putter. And part of his warm-up is he hops on a slack line, like a tightrope, if you like. It's just a strop with a ratchet on it, you know. So he goes out there, this big man, ex-prop he was, from Timaru Boys he was.
Yep.
And he tippy toes along this tightrope, this slack line. So I said, should I like that? He said, it's good from a balance, but it's also, he was too one-sided strong than the other, and it helped balance him up. So I went and bought a couple of those and took them to the All Blacks. So our boys started using them. Every Tuesday in the gym, we'd tie them between apparatus as part of their weights. They'd come back around and hop on the slack line and do their slack lining.
Wow.
So hence, just from shot putting, what'd you learn, you know?
Yeah.
And even from that, I'm having coffee tomorrow with Dale Stevenson, who's Tom's coach.
Yeah.
So we still communicate and catch up and just coaches talking. Yeah. So
the boys must have loved that.
Pardon?
The boys must have loved having a crack at that.
I'll tell you how they love it. The first time I used it, I tied it between two goalposts.
Oh, yeah.
And the boys all come out and they're all practicing, you know, after training. And in that next day, I get a video from Ofatunga Farsi.
Yeah.
He's gone out and got one. He's tied it to his tow bar of his car across to a tree. And he did the whole length and got his wife to video it. And then they sent it to me. It was a challenge for him to do the whole length of it. And he did it, you know. So, yeah, great.
So that's the importance of balance. Speed was the next one that I've heard you mention.
Well, when the referee says set, there has to be some form of movement forward. Otherwise, you get hit on your heels. You have to generate some forward momentum. So in today's new scrum rules, there's a very small gap. So you have to educate your players to fire out of the blocks. So no different to you when you were doing your speed training and you had harness on you and then they released you, so you overspeed training. I do it the same with line-out jumpers. Overspeed jump, I get them to jump quick and they can physically through different bands. So scrummaging, I put harness on them with a D-ring at the front, line them up on a sled, single sled scrum machine. I go crouch, bind. When I say set, they have to engage, but when I call set, I fire them in. So they're actually engaging far quicker than they would in a game. So I overspeed train them. So they learn, you do 10 of those with the harness and then do 10 without the harness. They've got their firing pattern. They can operate off a small gap or a big gap, but they know how to really fire. Overspeed train them.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And then the third one of the three, so balance, speed, and then the power.
You get power, as I said, from the ground and how you transfer it through your body. So the strongest pushing position really is, as I said to you before, we have two contact points, shoulders and feet. If you draw a line from the front of your shoulder to the front of your toe, and you draw a line or hold a flag, stick, it should just cut across the front part of your knee. So say an inch behind the front of your knee. That's the line. They call it a biarticular line. That's the strongest position biarticular for human beings to be in a horizontal position. So that's what you're trying to find. When you are there, your knee is roughly 120 degrees at the knee. So when you're in the squat rack and you go down the bottom and you come back up, about a third of the way up, you find that sweet spot where you know you can power out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you pause at that sweet spot, that's roughly 120 degrees at your knee.
Yeah. So
my job is to teach them how to generate the power. So the best way is to be in that strongest pushing position biomechanically. So I educate them with like harness gear and all sorts of stuff to get into that nice, strong pushing position, load them, a bit more isometric loading. And then I get them to do a fair bit of movement because you move and then get back into your strong spot. Move back into your strong spot. So you educate them on where their sweet spot is at all times. That's your strong spot.
I think your example of the squat, I think everyone can relate to that sweet spot, being able to get out of it.
Well, we are just squatters in a squat rack, scrummagers. When you come into the squat rack, you put the bar across your traps, you shorten your neck, you give a big chest, you do a pelvic tilt, you lock your core, your feet are shoulder width apart. When you come down, you know, you got a pelvic tilt, you're strong. And when you come back up, you find that sweet spot and power out. So that we just got to educate them from being vertical to horizontal.
When it comes down to the individual, how much time do you like to be able to spend with someone? I'm a goal kicker and love coaching people to kick, but as you know, it takes a long time to get your ideas and get them really, really nailing the skill. What's your take?
If you get a young, I go and help at the under 20s every year. I'd say 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 years for a prop to really hone his technique, because he's doing other stuff as well, learning how to be a great defender and great ball carrier and great passer and all this other stuff. But for scrummaging, he needs about 4 years under his belt, I've found.
I'm stoked you brought that up. So that 4 years, what does that look like week to week? How many hours and repetition and how much work does it take?
You can shortcut it if you're a guy like Owen Franks, who every second of every day he's doing his sit-ups, he's checking himself in the mirror, he's getting his repetitions in. But it's no good repeating something if it's not right. So there is no place for practicing bad technique, whether it be catch pass, whether it be kicking a goal, or whether it be setting yourself up in scrums. So you need to practice that, and it needs to you just have to get that setup part right. So if you liken yourself to a golf coach, what our job, like you're a goal kicker and I'm, say, a scrum guy, our job as golf coaches is to get them to hold the club and address the ball correctly. That's our first job. If we can't get them to do that on a regular basis, the odds of them hitting the ball where they want it is very slim.
Yeah.
So really nail that first part, which is your setup. So again, you just got to get the numbers in of repeating good techniques. So it just comes natural, even under fatigue. It's natural for you.
You mentioned Owen Franks, and I wonder if there's an example of someone that was a real slow burn. They just couldn't get it, and maybe an example of how long it took for someone to finally click with something in the scrum. Well,
some of them are restricted by their body. An example, some young front rowers, they scrummage up on their toes. The reason is their dorsiflexion hasn't developed properly enough to allow them to get more sprigs in the ground. So they're basically scrummaging up on their tippy toes. Any movement, they collapse.
Yeah.
Now, so they've just got to get the time in. One is flexibility through the ankle joint, make sure there's no impingement there. The other thing is getting thousands of bloody sit-ups in to get into that range of motion so you can get down and give yourself a fighter's chance, because you haven't got a chance up on your toes with no sprigs in the ground. I'll give you the tip. And it's not through them wanting to do it. They physically can't actually do it. These are younger guys.
Yeah.
As you get older, you can. So how you shortcut it? Get the numbers in.
Yeah.
Get the numbers into getting into that motion so you can get that dorsiflexion operating properly.
Mm. I'm a big believer in flow training and flow state training, where you don't have to be doing everything at 100%. You can have those sessions where you're just working around 70, 80%. And I'm wondering if scrum positioning and getting all these reps in where it doesn't have to be full noise all the time. Are you a believer and use that?
Yep. Yeah, I am. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're coaching and they're learning. Learning is motivation. Motivation's enjoyment. So they have to, every time you go to coach them, they have to be learning. So for me, I never coach without video. Unless it's shocking weather conditions, I always have the ability to say, let's go and have a look at that one. And we go to the tent, which is next door to me, and there's 2 massive TV screens, and we replay the last maul, the last line out, the last scrum, whatever we want to look at. Let's talk about it. What are we seeing? Now, a lot of coaches say, oh, I haven't got time for that stuff. So I'd rather do, say, 10 mauls, which are rubbish. I'd rather do 5, but they're top quality. Because we do 2, go and have a look at it. Maybe do 1 more, have a look at it. Do 2 more, come and have a look at it. So you're always checking. Again, no place for poor technique.
Yeah.
That's learning. So I do the same with scrums. I have about 4 or 5 cameras going.
Yeah.
I want to look at something, or the boys say to me, can I have a look at that, Chrono? Of course you can. I'll never say no to them.
With the days where I think it was 04 to 11 where you were the scrum coach and weren't in other areas, how did you go with time? Because these guys all have their Super Rugby commitments. They come to the All Blacks and it must feel quite rushed. So how do you get enough time in the week to spend on it?
Good question. What I did, I used to go around the franchises reasonably regularly. Watch them at training. Some coaches will say, could you take a scrum session so I can stand back and watch?
Yeah.
You know, no problem. So I'm there observing the player. I'm observing all the games, the footage, et cetera, et cetera. So you're probably doing 3/4 of the work before you get your hands on them in the All Blacks. But the biggest thing for coaches, every coach will tell you, no matter what area he coaches, he never has enough time. And I was the same. And I'd walk away frustrated because I never nailed what I wanted to nail. And then I worked out that the head coach isn't going to give any more time. So how the hell are you going to deal with this?
Yeah.
So there's 2 things I come up with. For about the last 6, 7 years, after every session I coach in any area of any team, I rate myself out of 10 how I coached it. Then I rate out of 10 how much learning did they get. Now, if I rated myself 9 out of 10 about how I coached it, but their learning was 2 out of 10, we've got a problem. So they have to be hand in hand. I have to coach well, but they have to learn. They have to be learning. The next thing was, how do I get rid of the frustration of the clock on me? So most coaches says you got 25 minutes to run your session. So you get your bit of paper the night before and you're right. Number 1, I'm doing this, 2 minutes. Number 2, I'm doing that, 3 minutes. Number 3, and you work your way down. And you know exactly what you want and you know how long it's going to take. You've played it in your mind 100 times. Off you go. You coach it. You're looking at your watch. After 2 minutes, you blow the whistle, say, right, we're on to the next thing. And little Johnny says, oh, can we do 1 more of that, Chrono? No, we haven't got time for that. Can I have a look at it on the video? No, we'll look at it after training. So you get to the next one. And then the players don't bother talking because they know they're getting nowhere. You're under the watch. The watch is dictating how you coach. And then at the end of the session, you walk away very frustrated and you're pissed off because the head coach hasn't given you enough time. So what I learned was write my 6 things out by all means. Then circle the 2 that you must nail at all costs.
Yeah.
Then I go and see the trainer and I say, tell me when I've got 2 minutes left of my session. So I virtually never look at my watch again.
Yeah.
The watch doesn't control me.
Yeah. I really rate that. And
the flow that you get, and you coach completely differently. Can we have a look at that last line out more, Chrono? Of course we can.
yeah.
Can we do one more? Yep, sure, no problem, boys. Yep. And all of a sudden, out of the 6 things that I probably wanted to nail or do, I probably did 5 of them, but I did them well. And I nailed the 2 most important things. I'm quite prepared to sacrifice the rest to nail the 2 most important things that the boys need at that training on that day.
Yeah.
And once that happens, you walk away, you coach completely different. I wish I'd learnt that when I was a young coach.
Yeah, it's absolutely great advice to have your 6, but the 2 you want to nail is the most important thing. Yep. With your coaching, a lot of people go from playing to coaching pretty quickly, and you kind of have a feel for what things were like when you were a player. As you've got older and got more experience, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay understanding for what the boys are going through and feeling, as you say, on the field?
Well, I think I've always had a pretty good rapport with the boys. They're honest. That's all I want. I want honesty. I'll be honest with you. No bullshit and jelly beans is what I tell them.
Yeah.
I'll just turn the light on. Hold on.
Yeah, right. No shit.
Yeah. So no bullshit and jelly beans. Don't tell me what I want to hear. We haven't got time for that stuff. Just be honest with me. I'm a big boy. I can take it, you know.
Yeah.
But through this honesty and open channeling, and I'll tell you something about players, and I'm talking about even if you're just coaching a first 15 or a senior team. If you ask them, what's the issues here? Generally, they'll know.
Yeah.
If you allow them, if you go along to, I get asked to go along to, say, coach a first 15, and they'll say, "Oh, we want you to look at the lineout." Oh, how many games you had? First thing I ask. Oh, we've had 4 plus 2 pre-season. Oh, that's good. What's been going well in your lineout? Now, give me. Anything else? Oh, that's really good. What do you think we need to look at to try and help you get a wee bit better in some of the areas? If you allow them, they'll tell you. Because I used to go in as a young coach and I'd give them my repertoire of line-out coaching or scrum coaching. And I'd be driving home and I think, shit, I hope that's what they wanted. I never asked them. So by asking them and allowing them time to have a wee think, they'll actually give you the answer. Guarantee it. And then you'll say, right, well, let's go and work on those 2 things that you told me. So I'm not taking up time on stuff that they're already good at. They know the 2 things we got to get better at. So we know it. Then I go, right, now you told me A and B we need to work on. Have we covered that off? Are you happy with that? Yeah, that's great. Anything else? No, we're happy. Done.
Yeah. One thing that I also picked up from you is comments like my personal view and for me and the way that I coach it. Those types of comments are always good to set up what you are coaching. Yep.
And I'm always open, as I said, I'm always open to get challenged, for the boys in the right manner. I mean, we all treat each other with respect. Like when I coach, no matter first 15 or the All Blacks, I call them gentlemen. Over here, please, gentlemen. Like it's always relevant, polite, clear instructions, and then we get the feedback. The feedback is the gold. To me, why would you do 10 scrums in a row and there's no feedback at training?
Yep.
I know when I first started at the All Blacks, that they would collapse a bit at training because it was I don't know, whether it's poor technique or whether or not, it was a one-upmanship. I don't know. So what I did was I said, we can't have this because on Saturday, there's a consequence.
Yeah.
There has to be a consequence at training. So from now on, any clap scrum, I think it was Chris Jack was my lock, you count them. And at the end of our scrum session, every forward will line up on the goal line, lying on his stomach, with his elbows out front. And for every clap scrum, I'm going to walk out 10 metres. And the first day they had 4 clap scrum. So I was out 40 metres. I said, when I blow my whistle, you have to crawl out to me by only using your elbows. You're paralysed from the waist down.
Yeah.
So that took a while. So eventually they all get out to me. I said, thank you. End of training. Following training, we do scrums. I said, right, same rules apply. All of a sudden, there's 1 clap scrum. After that, it's a rarity to have a clap scrum.
Yeah.
Good technique will help you. You've got to teach some good technique, but also no bailing out, no rolling shoulders, no getting out of, stay in there. It's you know, that's the game. On a sad day, it can be a penalty, so we can't have it at training. So there has to be a consequence. So I think that was a good thing to do too. Once your players have the right technique, then after that, we have to have a different attitude that we don't collapse.
Mm. That's gold. With dealing with the best players in the world and guys that have been doing it a while, they might have been called into the All Blacks and have had a full career under their belt. Like all skills, there's different ways to do things. When a player does something in the scrum that is different, that you might have a different idea of and what works for them, how do you deal with that player?
No problem. I have no problem with them coming up with ideas for themselves or for the scrum, and we'll have a yarn about it. All I say to them is, again, I go back to the golf analogy, that we've got you all swinging the club pretty good and hitting the ball pretty good here. So if you want to change something in your swing, we'll have a discussion first, a really clear discussion. And if we think it's worthwhile between you and I, we'll give it a wee go, a wee trial at training, and then we'll have a discussion again. Do we change our swing of our golf club or do we not?
Yeah.
But there's a process.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you keep changing, and then you don't know how to hit the ball. You've lost your swing.
Great example. I'm wondering if there's any stories or people that stand out as just people that just work. They just have put in more work than other people, which is why they got the results that they got as a player.
I don't know about that. Well, you're talking about older players who've been around, like Tony Woodcock was probably the best loosehead prop in the world, in my humble opinion. And late in his career, when you think he'd be, you know, just quite happy, he wanted to take things to a new level, and particularly in the gym. So he went to the best lifter back in those days, you know, the very dedicated lifter, in Brad Thorne, and said, can you be my partner for the year?
Yeah,
when we go to the gym. So that took him to another level. So there's different ways of getting more energy out of you, or more bang for your buck as a player. You know, that motivated him, because all of a sudden he's learning, he's getting better. That's motivation. So even for an old warhorse like Woody, he was still looking at ways right through to the end. There's no secret that the great players are still trying. Like Richie McCaw, in the last training session we did in 2:15 before the final, he still come over to have a look at the iPad I was running on a lineout to make sure he's doing it right.
Yeah.
147 tests at that stage, you have one more to go. So there's still thirst for getting better. You've never arrived. I know people say that, but you've got to believe it. You haven't arrived. And even when you retire, there'll still be things that you still want to nail. That's what you got to have, that thirst to get better. Yeah.
Absolute gold. And Brad Thorne teaming up with Woodcock. What a great guy to be in the gym with.
Great to watch. You know, the energy that those two exerted in the gym was wonderful.
100%. The keeping things fresh, and with a skill like scrummaging, a lot of boys would have been under you for a long time. Keeping those things fresh and ideas and focuses, how do you go about doing that?
Well, probably every year I've got a lot more little drills and little tweaks and stuff, you know, like that I think's worthwhile. They're not bullshit and jelly beans. They are worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I use all sorts of apparatus out in the field, from PVC pipes full of water, getting them to do lunges so it's all unstable. I get them to do all sorts of stuff like that. I use a lot of harness gear. I use a lot of instability stuff. And you know, a lot of it, that's quite interesting. You know, when they're in it, it's stuff they probably haven't done before, a lot of it. And it takes them to a new level because it takes them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
So generally, I've always got, you know, I've probably got 100 little drills or activities I could give them. You got to work out, what do we need for this, what we're trying to achieve. So in scrummaging, you know, you got your setup, your balance, you've got your you've got your bind sequence, then you've got your engagement, then you've got your loading, that's constant pressure after the engagement, then you've got the shunt when the ball comes in, then you've got your channeling. So they are all the areas of your building blocks. And then you work out, after you've had a few games, which one do we need to tidy up on? Then all your drills and activities focus in on that area, and you tidy that area up. And the boys know, because you've had a review of it, so they know all the drills we're doing relate back to what we're trying to achieve. And then eventually you'll put it all together.
Yeah.
So they know we're not just doing drills here. There's no place for that.
You're clearly so organised in your brain when it comes to the process and the coaching and the feel. It's awesome to hear. I suppose I want to go into now is you preparing for a test match, and probably hear about what you look for in a team's opposition. Say you're playing the Springboks. What's your process in viewing them, how they do things, and showing the boys this is what's coming?
Yeah, sure. So in our review on the Monday, I keep that pretty short and sharp and to the point. Again, I used to have all my clips, like on a Sunday, I'd do all my clips. I'd probably in a game now with the different areas of responsibility I had, I'd do well over 100 clips in a game. But at the end of the day, I might show 8. But you actually have to go through the process of doing your 100 and then sifting it down. Now, out of that 8, how I do it now is, at the end of our team review, we split backs and forwards. I have my forwards. So I sit down like you and I in a circle here, and I say, right, how do we go? Let's start off on our ball lineout. We have a yarn. Yeah, righto. And what do we got to work on? Da-da-da. Yeah, I got one clip to show you on that. So I show that clip. And then what about opposition ball lineout? Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, what about our scrum ball? Da-da-da. Yeah, I've got a couple of clips there. So I might have 8 clips to show them, but if they cover it off, I don't need to hammer them and show them. They've already told me they know that. So as a young coach, I'd show them come hell or high water because that's my presentation.
Yeah.
But now I adjust and adapt. Oh, they've told me that. They've told me that. So I only have to show the real critical few.
Yeah.
So they're not getting hammered. They know it's for a point, for a reason, and moving forward. And also, boys, we've got Sabrica next Saturday. I want to show you one clip about them. Put it in the front of your brain. I'll show them. Now, that's what we're training all week.
Did you single opposition players out, especially in the front row?
Oh, yeah, you do a report on all those 3, and then I put it, I show their strengths and weaknesses. Every prop has a weakness, a window of opportunity, everyone.
Wow, yeah.
My job is to identify where that window of opportunity is.
Can you identify a few of those opportunities? Just
yeah, like through a process. It could be on the bind. He opens his chest up. It could be on engagement. You know, he angles up too much. There's a window of opportunity. He gets too long in his leg. That's his window, just there. You're only talking split second. That's where you attack. Yeah. So my guys, no doubt, are the same. You know, my job is to make sure that any window of opportunity an opposition has, it's a very small window.
Yeah.
And we keep trying to repair that window and fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But every front rower, I think, no different to a boxer or whatever, there will be some little window where he's vulnerable. Yeah. So I do that. And now, instead of having a meeting and walking through it, the guys are so proficient, I just put it on the team computer. So I've done a little package for you, my little notes about what I'm seeing. If you want to know any more, come and see me, you know, because they're professional and they're very good.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
I'm interested to know about you during a game on the radios within your area. How keen are you to get on the mic, or you're wanting to leave it to the boys to sort?
I'm not that happy sending messages out. My job is to give them enough tools in the toolbox to deal with the what ifs out there. So, if there's been, say, a hooker throws a not straight, he knows he's thrown a not straight. He will know that he's taken his front hand off too early. So he should, through good practice, repair that and fix it for the next one. So my job is to educate them on the what ifs and then readily fix it, identify it and fix it. So I wouldn't send out a message, keep your front hand on the ball longer. I would wait to the next line out, and generally he's nailed it. You go, good boy. He's self-corrected.
And probably my last question with in-game stuff is the halftime. What does that chat look like? Okay.
So when the boys come in, their heart beats over 200 beats a minute. They're gagging. So I don't talk to them for 3 minutes. They know that. They can go and have a leak. They can go and throw water over their face. They can do what they want. They get in their circle, forwards, back, separate. After about 3 minutes, you're noticing that their breathing comes back to normal. They're just starting to get a bit, edgy on their seat. They're starting to get a bit, I said, are we ready, are we? We're ready. Okay. So then they got big ears, they're listening. Yeah. And then my job is to go to the leaders. Rito, our ball line out, how we going? Da, 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 da. Generally, these guys cover off everything that I need covered off. I might have to say one thing. All my job is to make sure, Sam Whitelock, opposition line out, how we going? Whoever the scrum captain is, how we going? Boys, there's one thing I'm seeing at the breakdown, and I'll give my little sixpence worth about the breakdown. It might be that, compared to last week, we're just a fraction slower getting off the ground and moving that first 5 metres than we were last week. Am I right or am I wrong? I said, no, shit, you're right, Crono. Righto. So that's the focus. Second half, let's just bounce a bit quicker, boys, and get our ass moving. Thank you. We're gone.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, my next question, you've had to deal with head coaches, and a lot of head coaches may have been backs or not experienced the front row or ever been in a scrum. What advice should a head coach, how much knowledge do they need to know about the scrum and what's going on, and what would you suggest for them to do?
Okay, if you're a head coach, I think it'd be handy to have a good bit of knowledge about the scrum, to the fact that you can walk along and watch a scrum session, and after training over a cup of coffee, if you can actually ask the scrum coach a couple of relevant questions, because you've got enough knowledge to ask those questions. Like, why was that guy doing this? Or what happened there? Because this is what I saw. So you give them enough knowledge to have the ability to ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Steve Hansen was a midfield back, and he knows a heck of a lot about scrummaging. Over the years we've been together, since '98. He can come along. If he stands next to my scrum session, I'll tell him, you stand around the back and just keep an eye on those two locks' feet for me, and just come back and talk to me if there's a problem. So I know that's been looked after. I just look after this other area.
Yeah.
So that's how coaches should help each other. And Steve's got enough knowledge. And I think if I'm going to be a head coach, you need to have a pretty good knowledge over everything.
Yeah. Good advice. This is great, mate. I'm loving it. A few more areas to talk about. The mental game. So getting guys prepared for that, and I had Case Muse on the podcast, and I said to him, Case, a kicker can have a bad day where he just can't kick the ball straight. When it comes to a front rower, how does form come and go and rhythm come and go? So I guess that's the start of the question, but also mentally preparing a guy to to take on the responsibilities? How do you go about that?
Well, I think 50% is confidence and 50% is technique. If they're only 90% committed to the task of shoving their head into a dark cave with 1.5 ton going through their ass, we got a problem. So I need them confident. That's the first thing. So through good technique and through preparation, I get them, hopefully they're confident to go out there and do the task in hand. And then roll with the punches that come. They're capable, you know what I mean? And so really from Thursday afternoon after training, that's it. You're on. She's all yours. I won't interfere with you. You know what I mean? You just get yourself ready. We're right. We're fine. You'll be fine. So give them the confidence through good coaching, good communication, good feedback, you know, so they're confident enough to go out there and do the task in hand. And I think don't underestimate that confidence. So, and the other thing is that I always say, like tight head props, you're lucky to win 50% of the hits. The great props is what you do after it. What you do when you don't win the hit, they're the great props. So it's not a problem because you know it's going to happen. But you know, and you've trained it to get out of jail and to get back into a strong position. So we can deal with that. We can handle it. We've trained it.
Yeah.
Whereas some guys, if they don't get everything that right, 100% right, you know, the wheels fall off them.
Yeah, love it. Keeping yourself sharp. A couple more to go. So what do you do at the moment to, you know, to keep yourself on, to keep yourself learning on the daily? What's kind of your process at the moment?
Well, I'm trying to restrict myself to just coach 3 days a week.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing, you know, first 15s and club sides, and I'm doing Zooms for World Rugby. I'm doing Zooms for other areas, other outfits. I decided in my semi-retired state, I'm going to, in a couple of weeks' time, I've got a little website that will come up. In my whole career, I've never, ever been on Facebook, LinkedIn, nothing. I just hide under the radar, you know what I mean? No one can get hold of me.
Yeah.
It's been good. So now that I'm not involved, you know, with the All Blacks and I have a bit of spare time, semi-retired, and I thought, well, and with the way the world is, and I'm doing a lot of Zooms, like, well, bugger it, I'll get on there, give them a website. If they want to touch base, send me footage of what their boys are doing, have a discussion about what I've learned as a coach over the years, the pitfalls, the what-ifs, the mistakes you've made. You know what I mean? If they want to do that, great. If they don't, no problem.
Interesting. I want to touch on that Zoom, with World Rugby, with what you've been doing with them. What's kind of the job at the moment, or what are you focusing on?
We did the, last week I did 3 1-hour sessions they divided the world into 3. Mm-hmm. So for tier 2 coaches, all the tier 2 coaches. So I did that last week, and this week I got 2 more to do Thursday night, Friday for the ladies. Awesome. I'm not sure if that's I presume tier 1. I'll just, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll coach it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And I suppose that website's going to be really exciting. I would encourage everyone to check that out. And I know that you can talk Scrum for days. Just before we finish up, I want to touch on those other areas that you were doing with the All Blacks. So the breakdown and the line out. So I suppose, how did you find that from having one area to now all of a sudden having a bigger responsibility and managing all that? Did you sort of how did you feel about that when you first got rolling?
Well, when I was just a scrum coach, you still had a little bit of input in all the areas. We all do, us coaches, and that's great. But all of a sudden you get given the task that you're the boss of this area. All of a sudden, you know, the rubber meets the road there. And so I went into it like, again, analyze the hell out of it, find out what's the underlying key components to everything. So your breakdown, born to contact, you know, give me all, you know, I've analysed the hell out of it, and then come up with different coaching methods, different drills to do for the boys to help them, speed of thought, take them through how quick can you your speed of thought from a changing pitcher as a support player to a clean-outer. How quick can you change, can identify that pitcher's change, and how quick can you react? All that sort of stuff. I love that sort of shit, you know. And line-outs, I really enjoyed educating the boys on how to jump faster, and I come up with little like things that jump on it and measure all sorts of shit. And I really enjoyed all sorts of activities that we brought to primer drills, you know, with medicine balls and bungee bands and overspeed training and all that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed that. Really opened my mind up.
Who were some of those leaders in the forward packs that you really enjoyed working with when it come to the detail and the knowledge of how you guys were going to be successful at line-out time?
Well, over the years, we had some really good line-out exponents, you know, Chris Jack way back, but since I took over the line-outs, you know, obviously Sam Whitelock has been there right through. Rito's a really smart man on line-outs. You know, those two jump to mind. You know, they're really smart boys. And we come up with, you know, I'd look after the technical side to make sure all the technical part of the line-out's working. They looked after the line-out options and all that sort of stuff. And I just made sure we got enough time off the head coach to do what we had to do. And then all my task was watching all the technical side of it and nipping that in the bud if it ever got off track. So I didn't have to worry about what's this call, what's that. I was just looking at, you know, jump first, lift second, technique of the jump, technique of the lift, you know, all that part of it. So they didn't have to worry about that because they were involved in the line-out. They knew I was looking after that. And so we come up with some, I thought, a really good balance. I knew my role, and they had most, you know, they're the guys out there, so they were running it as far as, you know, on the paddock and most trainings. And all I'm doing is making sure that we never ever train poor technique.
Yeah, that's magic, and having the eye for that detail. I remember Scott Robertson mentioned about keeping your eye and just being aware of being able to see things. Is that something you've experienced as well? As with your coaching, you kind of go through good form and need to clean up things?
Yeah, and also when you cut Scotty, because of his head coach, he can walk around and observe things. He actually sees a lot more than the guy coaching it.
Yeah.
Because Scotty, you know, as a head coach, he's got a good eye for everything. That's what we were talking about before, about just having a bit of knowledge about everything. So Scotty can stand back and observe without coaching, but he'll see a lot more quite often than the guy running a session on something.
Yeah.
When I coach, I reckon I wouldn't see more than 40%. So it defies logic to me. Like, if say you're a defence coach and you're running a D session at training, you're out there and you're blowing your whistle and you're running your defence session. The other three coaches staying on the sideline just having a chat. What a waste of resources.
Yeah.
For me, I'd have one guy say, your task, we're starting to crib a bit on D and the refs are getting pretty strict on it. Can you just walk along the sideline and line with them? Every time someone cribs and jumps the gun, just put your hand up so I can see your hand go up. So you're giving me feedback that we're cribbing. Yep. And the other coach, can you hop around and behind the attack and just watch my first two defenders to make sure they're doing this role and this role. Every time they're not, put your hand up.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I've given them two clear tasks. I'm running the drill. I don't have to worry about that part of the skill because it's being looked after by two other coaches. And just by them putting their hand up, I can bring the boys in and say, boys, we're jumping the gun far too much here. Take another meter or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how you can utilise other resources.
Yeah. Sharing the load of that coaching is great. And one question to follow up on that, with the coaching that was with the All Blacks, it was quite consistent for long periods of time. How did you guys keep each other accountable and sort of call each other out if things weren't going well? Did you have those hard conversations often?
Two things: brutal honesty and confronting inconvenient facts.
Yeah. I like those two.
So if you can actually do that in your environment, it's a healthy environment, you know, and the only reason you're doing it to me or I'm doing it to you, it's because we care about the organisation.
Yeah.
The organisation's bigger than you or I. So, you know, if I didn't care for the organisation, I'd let it go, or you'd let it go. But yeah, so brutal honesty, deal with inconvenient facts, and we can do that for the players and the management.
Mm.
So you're at the sharp end of a stick here, and that's you know that's what comes with the territory. If you don't, things slide.
Yeah.
You know,
great.
if I coach, I'll tell you a true story on that.
Yep.
When I was a young coach in the All Blacks, we all go back and have a coffee after training, and Gilbert Anoka quite often does a lot of filming for me. He's our mental skills coach. And he said to me, gee, I really love the questions you asked your players today. I said, oh, it's good, Gilbert. He said, no, I really mean that. Your questions were outstanding. An old chest goes out and an armpits come up. You know, I said, oh, that's bloody good of you, Bert. He said, do you know who answered most of your questions? I go, oh, was it Richie McCaw? Was it Anton Oliver? Was it, you know? No, he said, you did. He said, do you know why you did? I said, no. He said, young coaches are scared of silence. Some of the best advice I've ever been given. So that's the sort of thing that you need. Otherwise, I would have carried on the way I carry on. So he nipped that in the bud in the first few weeks that I was coaching the All Blacks. So through that, I'm not scared of silence when I'm coaching.
What a great way to do it, with a little bit of humour as well, but so much punch behind it.
It's gold for me as a young coach. It was gold.
Awesome. And this has been great, Mike. Thanks so much for being generous with your time and your knowledge and your stories. I suppose just to finish, it must be great having Dan getting into, your boy Dan getting into coaching now and doing such a great job.
Yeah, wonderful. I was talking to him today. We talk probably every day, every second day.
Yeah.
And it's great. He's 10 years at the Hurricanes now, and you know, and he's been to 3 World Cups with Samoa and Tonga. You know, he's very experienced for a young man, so he's got a good future. You know, he's a really good coach. Yeah, really good coach now, and I'm looking forward to. It's been great. You know, like after every All Black test, I ring him, no matter where I am in the world.
Yeah.
After All Black games, so I was there 217 games, and so I'd ring him after every game and have a debrief.
Wow.
Don't matter if it was 3 o'clock in the morning back in New Zealand or whatever. I think we only missed each other about 6 times through him flying, or he might have been out late or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after all his Hurricane games, he rings me.
Yeah.
Great, you know, great father-son sort of stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
Why did you find that so valuable and important to make that phone call after the game?
Well, I'm really close with him. And he's smart. You know, I love hearing him. He's so 3, 4 in the morning, he's just full of bloody knowledge, and he wants to tell you all about it. And I'm standing out in the middle of the paddock trying to listen and have a yarn, and we talk for about 10, 15 minutes, and he goes through the game. He's got a really great analytical mind. And I remember I'd walk back in the shed and Wayne Smith would say, what did Dan say? He'd want to know what Daniel said, you know. So it's just a great thing, a great tradition, great father-son thing. And generally he was right. Yeah. You know, and yeah, it's just bloody great. Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah. No, that's special. Awesome, Mike. Hey, thanks very much for that. I've thoroughly enjoyed that hour and chatting through that stuff. I know people will have got a lot of value out of it, and looking forward to seeing that that website come alive and your knowledge of and your career coming through. So thanks for your time.
You're most welcome, Pete. See you later.
Awesome. Talk soon.
Bye, mate.